Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to wait just a few moments for folks to join the meeting. I see we have a bunch of folks coming on. We do want to apologize ahead of time for anyone had any confusion with the time scheduling and change, but we appreciate the folks that made it. Thank you so much. Right. Looks like we have some folks coming in. All right, I think we have a quorum and we're ready to get started. So welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Marketing Moments webinar series. Hopefully there's many of you on the call today that have been with us through the last four. This is number 5. This one we're calling From Call to Care, Mastering Assessments and Conversions. I'm your host today, Julio Barea, Vice President of Sales with CareTime, and I'm joined by my friend and partner, Debbie Miller. Debbie has started and founded and running the 52 Weeks Marketing Company, and as you all know, very, very successful agency owner in Nashville. So good to see you again, Debbie. How are you?
Hi, Julio. Good to be with you. Hello, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm excited. I was so excited about doing this meeting today. But before we get going, let's talk a little bit about what's coming next. So if we can jump to the next slide. I know that our next class, folks, is Marketing Moments number 6. It's on September 18th. And the reason we want to talk about this one, this is going to be a segue to what Debbie's going to talk about today, basically, essentially a part 2. So it's really important that you folks join us, and we're looking forward to having you there. What we're going to talk about is turning your assessments into millions. In other words, turning those new clients and their assessments into real revenue. And mastering assessments, we're going to cover things like the mantra of an assessor, key principles to follow during an assessment, the mindset of your potential clients and their families, and how to appeal to their needs and their wants. We're going to talk about best practices for converting assessments into clients, as opposed to today, where Debbie's going to talk about converting leads into assessments, which is the first step of making revenue out of your strategies. And then, of course, strategies to improve client retention. Today, we're going to dig into quite a bit, but the learning objectives, which I find super interesting, Debbie, because you've been kind of taking us through a series of steps from the first one we did a few months ago into what are the things that we do to develop these leads and referral sources. And now this is really the first, to me, the first time where we're going, okay, now we have to take these leads and turn them into people that we're talking to. So we're going to talk about converting referrals and leads to assessments, conversion rates to strive for and hold your team accountable to, managing referral calls versus managing digital leads, and best practices for inquiry calls to assessment. And, Debbie, what really drives this kind of thing for you? What do you find the most important in this area?
Well, responding to the lead is really, really critical. And making a very good impression right out of the gate. You've got one chance to make a good impression. And I recently did a competitive shop. And so what I did is I actually didn't do it myself. I had somebody call every one of my key competitors. And one of the calls that he made, an owner was in her car answering an inquiry, like his call, and she had kids screaming in the back of the car. And she was very, very distracted and just left such a terrible impression on him. And so when he made all the notes, I was able to, we went over every single mystery call that he made. And that really stood out to me. And so it's very, very important that you understand how you're doing every step of the way, which is why I've broken it down the way we have. So, when we look at, are we getting enough calls coming in? What can we do about that, which we've talked a lot about. I'm going to touch on again today. But then how do we get that very important call that could be worth millions of dollars, which I'm going to talk about next time? How we get that call to the assessment and then win that client, so that we can build our revenue. So we're going to really delve into some of these specifics, but the effectiveness of every key point is very, very important. Everything counts because we've worked so hard to get that phone ring, and now it's about answering it effectively and getting it to the assessment.
I love that you said that because it's about professionalization of your process, right? You mentioned, I think it was 2 webinars ago, about systematization of what they're doing, and that's vitally important. I tell my team all the time, I say, you know, we may not be the best at this particular thing, but we can execute the things that we are good at perfectly every time. And I think that the way that people see you, if you have this fantastic marketing program and they see this incredibly professional agency, and when they pick up the phone, they're expecting someone to also continue that path of professionalism and things like that. Not that all of us can control kids. That's tough. I got 3 at home too. So I feel the pain for that poor lady that's taking the calls on the phone.
Right.
But there are definitely things that we have to work on to be better at it. So before we get started, let's jump in. I think we have a survey question coming up. And this is a great one because if you don't measure, you don't know, right? And in order for things to be useful, you have to be able to measure it, and then you take those data points and use them. So how often do you measure your conversion rates? Is it weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly? Not very regularly. That seems to be the predominant one, but I see some biweeklies coming up there. Just a couple of nevers. This is interesting data. I love this. So it looks like not very regularly is primary, followed by weekly, biweekly, and then monthly, and then quarterly, and then just a few never. I love the fact that people are measuring it, Debbie. I really like seeing that. That tells me there's definitely an appetite for what you're going to talk about today. So let's move on to the next slide. And I think before we get started, I want to ask you, Debbie, one of the things that brought you into this business was the way you grew your agency business um, quite drastically over a short period of time. I mean, you've really come a very long way, and obviously this kind of stuff, you found a way to master it. How did that happen?
Exactly. Yes. When as you get bigger, it's harder to keep growing. I have to say that. And, just for everyone's information, I grew my home care business to just under $11 million in 10 years. And so
Fantastic.
we're now at a point with natural client attrition and all of the things that we deal with on a regular basis. I have to sign 40 clients just to maintain. So it's very important that we are applying and being really effective, as I said, every step of the way so that we really can achieve that growth. So it's a numbers game. The more referrals, it's a funnel, like you had mentioned earlier when you and I were talking. It's a funnel. The more you have at the top of the funnel, the more you're going to have at the bottom. So having as many referrals and leads coming in, and when I say referrals, and the difference between referrals and leads, for the purpose of this presentation, when I'm saying referrals, that is a referral that was sent, or a client that came to you through the word of mouth of someone else, whether it was a healthcare provider in the community, or so on, maybe a payer source that sent the client to you. That I'm going to refer to that as a referral. Leads are what I refer to as something that might have been generated from a Google search or a lead provider, that internet, that kind of thing. So more digital leads in general. Okay. So, but the more leads from as many sources as possible, the better. At the same time, you've got to be really effective at converting those referrals to assessments, and then those assessments to client. And at the end of the day, we've got to retain those clients, right? We want more coming in the front door that are going out the back door. And by retaining the clients is how you really achieve that growth. So you've got the new business coming in, but as long as you're maintaining, you will actually see your business grow. So it's really important that you focus on retention as well. So we're going to look at that you've heard me talk about having multiple referral pipelines. You want lots of different sources that are providing a steady stream of referrals. So I was talking about lead providers earlier. Those also the community referrals, as I mentioned, are really important because different sources, the different referral sources, have better or weaker conversion rates. So you want a little bit of everything and kind of operating on all cylinders. That's really important. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you in a second. So the more you have coming in and the more that you're converting to assessments, ultimately the more clients that you're going to have. So that conversion to assessments is what we're going to really focus on today. Next time, we're going to focus on converting those assessments to clients. So really excited about sharing that information with you as well. So converting to grow, look, as we said earlier, you spent a ton of money and a lot of effort to get the phone ringing or getting these leads coming into your inbox. So you've got to do your best. And what is very, very important is you've got to strike while the iron is hot. All right, I'm going to share with you some statistics. There must be somebody available to answer those incoming calls, and you need to answer them quickly. In my business, at my office, I say, we've got to answer that call within 3 rings. And there have been many times, probably last week, where I'm in a meeting and that phone rang the 3rd time and nobody picked it up, and I grab it. I cannot let the phone ring because we put a lot of effort into getting that phone ringing. So here's some statistics. 85% of people will not call a second time. 25% of people won't wait on hold. So if you've got a system where you've got to do a lot of transfers to get to the right person answering the inquiry call, that's not a good thing. All right. So you might want to consider setting up your phone where it's a, if you're calling about service, press 1 and make sure that number 1 is answered and answer quickly. This is really interesting. 40% of calls, digital leads in particular, come after hours. So if you don't have a system in place, and we're going to talk about systems in a minute, if you don't have a system in place, that's going to be a problem. You're going to miss out on those opportunities. So let's look at some conversion goals that you should be striving for. All right, this is what we in my business are always striving for. For those community referral partners that are sending us leads or sending us referrals, sending us folks that are in need of care, the conversion rate from referral to assessment, we try to keep above 60%. And then as you can see, our conversion rate gets really higher when we go from assessment to client. So we've got a great success rate when we get into the home that we're going to be able to convert that to client. So that's kind of an average that you should be striving for. When we look at the digital leads, and remember when I said there is a difference in how more valuable those community referrals are because they're easy to convert. So digital lead, what you want to be striving for is greater than 30% of those leads that you get to assessment. And then again, being effective in the home, you should be striving for about a 70% assessment to client conversion rate. All right, now I want to share with you, I always love to share some of my own data and kind of show you how I'm walking the talk here. But I may have showed you this once before, but this is just really helps me to validate my point. Sorry for my voice, everybody. I'm, as you can see, struggling with a little something going on here. But
you're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay, good. So what you see in the green bars are as we go through from referral to assessment to client. I'm going to show you the conversion rates versus digital leads. All right, so this is a snapshot of time. June of last year from my business. And so as you can see, just for June, we received 67 referrals that our sales folks were out there generating. Of the 67, we had a 71% conversion rate, right? Which is higher than what I was recommending, but with the stage of my business, we should expect that. So we were able to convert 48 of those assessments and then converted those to 42 of them to actual clients.
That's amazing.
Look at the numbers though for the digital leads. All right, so we converted 26% of them to assessments and then 69% of them. So we're just a little under what I was recommending, but I'm going to show you what I did. I applied some of the principles we're going to talk about today, and I actually have been able to improve my numbers on the digital leads. So if I was only focused on digital leads and didn't have anybody out there generating community referrals, I would have only signed 9 clients versus the 51 clients that I was able to sign. So we were able to see growth in the month of June because we're operating on all cylinders. So I wanted to share with you why that is so important to have those multiple pipelines, to be effective in your conversions, and also to to be sure that you've got some activity going on in the community to get those higher value referrals. So we've got another survey question here. And the question is, do you currently have a marketing system and methodology focused on increasing community referral partners? So let's see how we're doing here.
Which is why you were talking about spending so much time on building the referral partners in your prior webinars, like really driving home the ability that that's where you want to spend your time and your resources.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the things to keep in mind is if you've got a sales force, and it's very interesting, these are higher numbers than we've seen. Looks like people have actually got people out there in the community, which is awesome. Building your brand, generating those referrals. But it's all about what happens back at the ranch, right? When those referrals come in. And there is nothing more frustrating than a salesperson feeling like the home base is not acting on all of their hard work, all of those referrals that they've generated. If they're not converting, they're going to be really, really frustrated. And in fact, Dylan is working with a couple of owners right now who's he's really trying to help them create a better system because the marketer has expressed this concern about I'm doing all this hard work and then we're not converting those clients. So that's just an important part and why I wanted to share that with you. So I'll give you some more information about the 52-week system in case you are interested if you don't already have a system that can definitely help you. It is a turnkey referral generating system that basically helps your salespeople develop relationships out there in the community. It's based on a very specific methodology to help you do that, based on reaching the right people within the right centers and the right positions within those centers, seeing them often enough, which is typically weekly, being consistent in developing that relationship, solving problems that they have, and then collecting and measuring the data using a CRM. We've got one as part of our system, but holding your team accountable to the KPIs, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. All right, so I want to show you, just give you another example of why this is so important. So I took just like an idea of if you were achieving, say, a 50% conversion rate on your assessment. So say you were generating 100 referrals in a 1-year period, that would be terrible. But if you were generating 100 referrals and your conversion rate was 50%, you got 50 assessments. And out of those 50, if your conversion rate was 60%, you have 30 clients. So you're looking at a revenue just under $500,000. Now look what happens to your revenue when you not even touching the referrals. If you just improve your conversion rates, take that same 100 referrals and you increase your conversion from inquiry call to assessment, and then increased your ability to do a very effective assessment to 80%, and closed 80% of those clients. Look at what it does to your revenue, almost double your revenue. Now, let's take a look at what happens when we increase the number of referrals. This is what I mean, where you're meeting all those KPIs and measuring those KPIs. So let's double those referrals. Let's hit our target conversion rates here and look what it does to your revenue. You're looking at, you go from 677,000 in new business to 1.5.
It's a huge jump. That's crazy.
Yes, and it's doable. I've seen it when we've focused on our conversion rates and really honed in on where the problem is. And if you don't measure it, you won't know where you're weak and you won't be able to resolve it. So now when you look at if you just retain them a little bit longer, this is based on a 12-month length of stay with your services. If you just increase that by 1 month, you see the impact that it has on your revenue. So I think that helps us to better understand why it's really important to focus on conversion rate. Now let's look at what we need to do. You have to have an infrastructure in place to answer your calls immediately, to respond to the digital leads immediately. They're coming to your email, however you've got that set up, and then follow up on the leads. I say you got to work those leads to the bone until they tell you to stop. You just work that lead. You need a very strong salesperson. And so, we're in the caregiving business, but we're also in the sales and marketing business. All right. You can't provide caregiving services if you're not selling your services, if you're not effective at selling. So it's important to have somebody that can actually do this, who's friendly, caring, knowledgeable, and focused. All right, to be able to achieve those conversion rates. And then finally, you need to have a tracking and follow-up system to capitalize on every lead that you've been able to generate. You've spent a lot of money to get them, so you got to work them. One thing I recommend is that you have you use the same number for all the channels wherever you're marketing. You funnel everything into one number, one email or a couple of emails. You probably want to have backup on those digital leads. But I really recommend that you don't publish your marketer's number on your collateral material. All right, because for obvious reasons, if they leave you, what happens? If it's all going to their cell phone, you're going to miss out on those opportunities. So it's important that it goes to that one number that is being manned for 24/7, basically. And so that's just an important thing that I've seen people really run into some problems because they've had all the information go into their marketer, they lost their marketer, and then they're in trouble. All right. So in our office, and over the years, I have refined our referral and lead intake form. And so on this sheet, I give a lot of space to put some information because my goal is always to make the conversation or the call as conversational as possible. So you want to definitely find out how they heard about you so that you can circle back and give the input to your marketer. You want to collect important information on the caller because that's going to be important for follow-up. You need to know who you're following up, as much detail as possible. Get their email because you can put them into a drip campaign much easier if you've got their email. Of course, you're going to get all of the client-specific care information. You'll gather that there. A lot of the details that you'll be gathering as you're being conversational on the call, you'll be able to give that information, pass that information on to the assessor if it's a different person. So those are the really good nuggets that you're going to get during your conversation. And then I built this piece in where we're starting to collect a lot of the payer information so that, again, the assessor, when she goes to do the assessment or he goes to do the assessment, they've got as much information and they can be as prepared as possible so that there's nothing going to hold them back from signing that client, whether it's an aid in attendance information sheet or a long-term care insurance those are the things that you want to go into knowing what you're going to walk away with to be able to execute and start that care for that client. So think about, if you look at the numbers that I used earlier, this is a $16,000 piece of paper. In many cases, much, much more. That's so basic. I'm going to talk about the $1 million piece of paper that I had when I discuss the assessments next week. So our goal ultimately is to schedule the assessment. That is the goal of that a call, or the goal when you're following up on a digital lead is to get that assessment booked. All right. So when we talk about taking that call, so what you want to really do is, whoever that is that's doing it, is to think about this as making your objective is to make an emotional connection with the caller. Start building that relationship. They are very stressed out. What you want to do is show how you've got the answer to their problems. All right. They're stressed. They might be confused. They don't know where to start. You want them to feel like they called the right place. And I often will say that. I'll say, well, you know what? You've called the right place. Let me tell you, and then I'll walk them through. You want to exude empathy. Mimic their tone. If they're stressed out, you want to calm them down. If they're sad, if they're telling you that mom has brain cancer, I am so sorry to hear about that. Tell me what's going on. So you want that empathetic tone. That's really, really important. They're going to appreciate it. You're going to be able to connect with them. You also want to help them understand how you're going to guide them. You give them hope during the conversation, but you're also positioning yourself yourself as an expert in the way you manage the flow of that call. So I'm going to give you some more details around that. Ultimately, your goal is to schedule the assessment. So something that's of utmost importance is being in a proper state of mind. One of the things that I did years ago, we've got just a great system now, but for some folks that struggled with some of the things I'm going to be talking about, we actually had mirrors at everyone's desk. Anybody that answered the call, we had a mirror there so that they would put a smile on their face. It's an old sales technique, right,
Yeah.
Julio?
Yes, it is.
But it
Very old
works.
school.
It reminds us that we've got to come ready to not be about our situation. Don't bring any baggage. Um, you know, if your infrastructure will allow, I think it's better that you don't have your scheduler answering inquiry calls, because what the last thing you want is somebody that's just struggled to staff a case, and now, oh my gosh, now I've got to take another call, book an assessment. Now I'm gonna have another client that I'm gonna have to worry about scheduling. So those are the kinds of things that, it may be counterproductive. But helping whoever's answering the phone, you're there to empathize, advise, and get the assessment book. Have a quiet environment. So unlike what I talked about earlier, where the lady's got the kids screaming in the background, have everything ready so you don't have to put them on hold. Have your referral sheet, your pen. They shouldn't hear any noise at all in the background. Okay, because you want to, part of that putting yourself in that mindset is really being focused on what their needs are. You've got to be able to listen here, and you want them to feel like they are the most important person to you, that and that's what you want to convey. So anything that's distracting you, you need to remove it. I don't know how many times I'll give somebody the snap, like, shh, I'm on the phone. So it's really important that you have that quiet environment. All right. So when you are connecting on an emotional level, what you don't want to do is start giving them all kinds of information about your business and start rambling on. I hear that a lot. I've listened to a lot of calls over the years, and that's something you don't want to do. You're not connecting emotionally if you're doing that. Begin, and although you want to collect a lot of demographic information, try to do it in the flow of the call as you are having that conversation. What I like to do is to set the stage for the call. So first of all, ask, who am I speaking with? Make sure you get their name correctly. Sometimes it's, they say it really quickly, but you don't want to be calling them by the wrong name. Susan, listen, so glad that you called today. Are you calling about yourself or someone else? So they say, I'm calling about your mom. All right. Well, as a matter of process, I'd like to understand how things are going with your mom, what your concerns are, and then I'll tell you about our services, our process, and all the ways that I think it can help you. And then get right into, tell me about your mom. What's going on with her? And then you'll start to hear the emotions. They're going to express what their concerns are. What are you worried about? Tell me more about that. The more you get them talking, the more they are invested in the relationship that you're building. So I typically look at it, an inquiry call and the assessment, to be about a 20 to 30-minute discussion. All right, so that's another thing that you want to consider when you decide who it is that's going to be answering the phone. Does this person have the time that's needed to develop that conversation and to really connect on that emotional level? What I like to think about is, the more they talk, the more they've told me their whole story, the less they're going to want to tell that whole story to somebody else. And chances are they're not going to call another provider because they feel comfortable and they feel like I'm going to be able to solve their problems. All right. Then what we do is we guide them to setting that appointment. So based on our conversation and all the information that you've gathered, I truly believe our services are going to help your mom immensely and give you the peace of mind that you need, or whatever it is that was stressing her out. Maybe it's that, I've got to get back to work. I would use her words back. So I would say, look, my goal is to get you back to work. All right. So then I would repeat all of the concerns that she has, and then you will illustrate how your services are going to meet those needs that mom has, and then walk her through this next step. The next step in our process, and I always say this, it's like just a natural way to get to the assessment. The next step in our process is to schedule an assessment. This is where we're going to be able to get more insight into your mom's environment. And it's just going to help me to get to know her on a deeper level so that I can provide the right person with the right level of skill. And then I go right to, I'm looking at my calendar right now, and I've got this afternoon open or tomorrow at 2. What works for you? Now you'll notice I like to strike. Remember, I always said strike while the iron is hot. That goes for scheduling the assessment as well. All right, the sooner you can get that assessment, the less likely your competitor is going to get into that home. All right, so if you've got some opening today, if you're scheduling for somebody else, you would explain that. In my case, I have social workers that are doing the assessments. So I'll say I'm looking at my schedule or my social worker's calendar. She's got tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. But the sooner we can do it, the better it's going to be for everyone. And she's got immediate needs. Typically, these folks are in crisis, and you want to resolve that for them as soon as possible. And then ultimately, when we were talking about systems earlier, you want to have a way to follow up and then transfer all the information that you gathered to the folks that are going to be doing the assessment or the next touch points with those clients. So what I like to say is, look, you're going to get a follow-up email because we use Google Calendar. When we book the assessment, the email goes directly to the caller and lets them know all the details about who's going to do the assessment, and they can put it right on their calendar. Sorry, guys, I'm struggling here, tripping over my tongue. And it's a matter of getting that information into your operating platform, your CRM, to ensure that you're able to track all of this and, again, monitor your conversion rates. And so you'll want to share the important information with your assessor and then also your marketer. Let them know I just got a referral so that they can reach out really quickly, thank the referrer, and then also to let the referrer know what the process is, what the progress is with that particular referral. And then finally, if there are any action steps, those kinds of things, you want to set that up in your CRM as well. So again, just having that system so that everything is transparent to all the folks that need to be involved. If you don't get the assessment, ask for permission to send that caller some follow-up information. An email. I love to send a fridge magnet. So I get their address, send the fridge magnet, and I can't even tell you how many times, even years later, somebody has called us because they had that fridge magnet. Ask them when would be a good time to follow up. Sometimes it might be, well, I've got to talk to my sister. I was gathering information. Great. What would be a good time for me to follow up that gives you enough time to talk to your sister? And then finally, if you still haven't been successful in getting that assessment, you want to move that referral or lead into a drip campaign of some sort where you could continue to touch that person with frequent touch points. All right, now let's talk about the digital leads. Okay, many of us are working with A Place for Mom or agingcare.com. Again, very important to respond to these quickly. All right, there is a ton of competition for these leads, and a lot of times people will get several calls from several providers, but sometimes it's the first person in. So you need to be able to respond to those leads within minutes. All right, and I'm not even exaggerating. Also, when you make your initial call once. This is a really good tactic. Call once. If they don't answer, don't leave a voicemail. Call them right back. All right, people are bombarded these days, and so when somebody calls back, it looks like it's, oh, maybe this is somebody that knows me, or it's something more urgent. It seems to improve the pickup rate when you do that. If you don't get an answer to your call, leave a message. So if you don't get an answer on the second one, leave a message, then send a text. All right. Texting is becoming the way of it's people are uh like they like to do texting more than ever. Man, I can't talk. Anyway, you get my point. So
Love that.
incorporate texting and then also email. So lots of different ways to touch. This is your follow-up cadence. I'm going to actually show you a cadence that Place for Mom recommends and that I have incorporated, and that's how I've been able to increase my conversion rate on these digital leads. So this is something interesting to note that Lori from A Place for Mom told me that most leads convert within the first 30 days. About 80% of them convert within the first 30 days. But then there's another uptick in the conversion after 60 days. So, but she says that the best response seems to be after at least 6 touch points. So if you are not touching these folks at least 6 times, you're not going to be successful. But it takes a system to be able to do that, right? In my organization, because of my size, and I actually have, and because we're so busy, we weren't able to follow up on these leads within minutes. So I actually have a third party provider that I work with that answers calls outside of our business hours and also follows up on every single digital lead. And they make 12 attempts to reach that person. And that after that, then I move them into our drip campaign. So that's something that you might want to think about. So these are where you're going to get the digital leads. And as I said, 40% of online leads are generated outside of business hours. So if you haven't got anybody following up with them, your competition's calling them. All right. Now, my system is so effective now. I actually tested a lead that came in on a Sunday about a month ago, and I had this lead, and it looked like pretty substantial number of hours. And I called this lady, and she said, "Oh, somebody just called me." This was a Sunday afternoon, and I'm
Oh,
telling
wow.
you, within 5 minutes. And she said, "Somebody from your office just called me." I said, "Oh, that's fantastic. Were they able to schedule an assessment?" She said, "Yes, and such day." And I'm like, "Okay, fantastic. Well, we certainly look forward to meeting you then." So you definitely want to follow up. If you're working with somebody else, you want to call. By the way, call your own office. Do mystery shop on your own office. It's amazing what you will learn. And do it at all different times of day, and see how your office is managing calls. Okay. And I also recommend you call your competition as well. All right, here is that follow-up cadence I was telling you about. I love this. So they talk about the types of touch points there on the left. So calling, texting, emailing. All right. They suggest that you have a signature block that includes your full name, title, business, and all of that stuff. Okay. So that they can follow up with you. But then look at how they categorize the follow up. So a hot lead is what they deem somebody within 14 days. And so you'll see 1 to 2 touch points in the first couple of days, and then a touch point every other day for the remainder of those days. A warm lead is between the 14 to 30, still touching them a couple of times a week until the end of the 30 days, and so on. So this is a great slide. Take a picture of it. And this is a system that you would want to build around because it is very, very effective. And so I applied this. Where we were falling short was in the recyclable leads. So just following up with them once they've, if they said that they've gone to somebody else, we would sort of write that lead off. But look at what happened in month over month. Okay, so I took June, which I just showed you with the digital leads, which is in red, and then we applied these principles. And so what you see in the blue are the July numbers. Okay, and so we had fewer leads come in July, but look at our assessment rate went up. But because we were following up with them, we signed more clients than we assessed because they were June's assessments, because we followed up, put them on a drip campaign or referrals. So we were able to increase our lead to client percentage to 30% versus what I had in June, which was 18%. So that meant more clients signed, more revenue. Okay, so just applying some of these principles can really make a difference and improve your conversion rate. So be intentional, set your expectations, set your KPIs, how many referrals, measure the referrals that are coming in, measure your result, analyze them. What does the data tell you? So for example, if you've got a really good number of referrals coming in and less than a 60% conversion rate, there's a problem with the person answering the phone. And so you're going to need to do some work there with that person, change the person, focus on what the problem is. If you've got a good conversion to assessment, but the assessment to client ratio is low, the problem is the person going out and meeting the families and doing those assessments. Maybe they're uncomfortable asking for the check, closing the deal. I've had that situation where I had a social worker that I hired for an interim period while one of my gals was on maternity leave, and she really struggled with asking the family for the check. And so when and of course, because I'm analyzing the numbers, I determined the problem was with her. And, we were able to really hone into that, practice that. She got so much better. So you want to fix the problems when you identify them. All right. Well, we've got another survey question. How are we doing time-wise? All right,
We're doing great. We've got
we're doing pretty well. All right, so
4 more minutes, I think we have for you.
All right, so for those of you that maybe are trying to manage everything in your office and would be interested in getting some information about call centers, we've got a couple that we've vetted that we feel really strongly about. We can send you that information. So if you tick yes, we'll send you some information and you'll be able to follow up with them. All right. Our next survey question. If you'd like information about the 52 Weeks Marketing System and our coaching that really helps owners and their salespeople out there to develop those relationships and increase that pipeline of community referrals, then if you indicate yes, then we will follow up with you and get you some information about our program that will really help you do that. So yes, 64% said yes. That's awesome. Looking forward to having a conversation with you. All right. Okay, Julio.
Yes, and then folks, if you want to really help manage and grow your referral and your marketing efforts, you want to make sure you're working with a system that has the ability to help you track those things. So if you're interested in learning how Carrot Pie can help you manage and improve your conversion rates through our built-in CRM, we're happy to help.
Awesome. Lots of folks to follow up with. Great.
All right, folks, our next class is coming up. It's first of all, Debbie, absolutely amazing information. I see Dylan over here on the questions, chatting with people in the questions. I love seeing that. Folks, feel free, reach out to Dylan. He is the man when it comes to getting you connected with 52 Weeks Marketing, and he's putting his information here. There's also, Debbie was very kind and dropped that $1 million referral, that $16,000 referral form is in the chat. Make sure you download that PDF before the meeting is over. Our next class is coming up on September 18th. We're going to be turning those assessments that you guys have spent collecting and filling out and turning those into millions by mastering assessments. The mantra of an assessor, key principles to follow during an assessment. Assessments aren't just clinical conversations. They're part of the sales process. Really important to know. The mindset of your potential clients and their families and how to appeal to their needs and wants. And then best practices for converting assessments to clients and strategies to improve your client conversion. So Debbie, on that note, if you'd like to lead us out with any final thoughts or words.
Yes, it's more you have a structured system with key people appointed for the different KPIs. That I think is going to really help you. And again, measuring and analyzing is so critical so that you know how you're doing. And whatever, if you need any help along the way, we're here to help you. I look forward to delving into the assessments. I have a very, very good conversion rate myself. I don't do many assessments anymore, but I used to pride myself on over a 90% conversion rate.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to sharing some of some of that information. We finished a little earlier. I can't believe we got through all that information. Did you want to take a couple questions, Julio?
Yeah, let's see if we have it. The folks, we have some time. I have the Q&A open. There's a question about the slides being shared. Casey, are we sharing these slides after the meeting? I think we are. Anyone else? Looks like somebody recorded the call. Let's see here.
The
Yeah.
calls are recorded,
Yep.
and so you can always go back if you wanted to have your team review this. This is a great presentation that you'll be able to share with your team. And again, develop that system that you're going to use internally to take advantage of all of that hard work that you've put into getting the phone ringing.
Absolutely. You folks, you can find all the calls on the resources page of CareTime on www.caretime.us.com and also on 52weeksmarketingllc.com. So we're looking forward. It looks like you guys have helped us grow. First, I want to end with a thank you. The meeting attendance has grown every month. It sounds like there's a group of you folks that are following every one of the meetings that Debbie's doing. We appreciate it. We value your time, and we certainly hope that you're getting what you need out of these to help you grow your business. And on that note, Debbie, as always, it's such a pleasure seeing you again. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.